What's up, guys? I just read When Everyone Knows That Everyone Knows by Steven Pinker. It's his 2025 book, his most recent book. Steven Pinker is one of my favorite public intellectuals. He's a professor of psychology and linguistics and cognitive science at Harvard. I guess the book, if I had to kind of try to distill it down into a sentence or two, I would say it's basically about once something has been spoken, the landscape changes drastically, whether or not people already knew the information of what was spoken or not. This is probably the easiest way I could try to sum it up in a sentence or two. Meaning, it's different. Say there's like a group of couples that go out to dinner every Friday night. There's 5 couples, and every single person at the table knows that Bill cheats on Mandy, including Mandy, but it's never been spoken publicly. And say someone says it at the dinner, that's going to drastically change the dynamic of all of those relationships because none of them have plausible deniability anymore. Anyway, it's a lot of kind of mind games going into examples like that. It's pretty dense, but I found it pretty fascinating. A lot of conflict in drama and movies and screenplays and stage plays are driven by miscommunication, especially if it's like a realist drama. Like, say it's just a romance, like a modern romance about a couple that exists in New York City. A lot of the conflict is going to be driven on miscommunication. So, for example, if you have like a character that's an atheist and a character that's a Christian, but they haven't really discussed religious beliefs, but they've both kind of hinted at it, and then say the atheist is a girl, she has a cross necklace tucked in her shirt, and she leans over and the cross swings out. The atheist sees it, but he doesn't want her to see it. He doesn't want her to see him see it because he likes her. So by the time she looks up, he's looked away, and then they both kind of still retain plausible deniability, whether she's a Christian or not. But the kind of suspicion that, she is a Christian, or that she saw him see her be a Christian, can kind of color conflict in the subtext for the rest of the story. That was a pretty long-winded example. But some other, I thought, funny examples they spend a whole period of time talking about how it works for bribery, and why outright bribes are never taken. If you were to get pulled over by a police officer and say, hey, I'll bribe you to not give me a ticket, no police officer would ever say that. But sometimes if you were to say something that would give you both plausible deniability as a protection, is there another way we can work this out, officer? Well, sliding him a 50, in a more corrupt society, that would have a higher success rate for the bribe to work. They use Soviet Russia, a study from Soviet Russia, as an example, which is known to have a lot of corruption. Or there was a really funny example of this professor trying to test it out on New York, Manhattan maitre d's. And so he would walk up to all these maitre d's in Manhattan and say, slide them $50 and say, hey, any chance you have a cancellation tonight? Whatever. And the funny takeaway from that was that it worked 100% of the time for whatever study this was. And anecdotally, I feel like at nice restaurants now, I sometimes see that there's 2 maitre d's, and I kind of wonder if it's to prevent corruption like that. I don't know why a restaurant owner would necessarily need to prevent their maitre d' from getting bribed for giving away reservations. But just something I thought of. Another example they gave that was really good was like inviting someone back up to your apartment. You would never say, hey, do you want to come back to my apartment and have sex with me? You would say, do you want to come back to mine for some coffee, or do you want to come back and watch a movie? They ran through a bunch of studies that were where someone said, do you want to come back to my apartment and have sex with me? And it was pretty much a 0%, or it was a 0% success rate, whereas if you could use innuendo, it had a much higher success rate, so you could both maintain plausible deniability. And then he also talks about how this is used in politics. He spends a lot of time talking about cancel culture, and I guess it seems like he has kind of an agenda for the book, and the agenda is to protect free speech, especially in academic institutions. It kind of begins talking about cancel culture a lot and then ends with why he thinks we need to protect free speech in institutions. But he goes through the whole kind of psychological deep dive about why people like to cancel people and why groups function like that, why people like to align themselves with groups as like a form of affirming that they're on like the right side of an argument. But yeah, he kind of says that he does have an agenda to defend free speech, and that he has started a I don't know what it would be, a movement or group on Harvard campus in order to defend free speech in academic institutions. And he cites, I think, John Stuart Mill's writing on liberty from, I believe, the 1850s, when he says free speech should be upheld because, one, we might learn something. Two, even if they're completely wrong, we might learn a little something new. And three, if they're completely wrong, we can learn why they're wrong, and how they came to think that way. So, he spends a lot of time talking about cancel culture and how, I guess, the moral principle that cancel culture is built around is a good moral principle most of the time. They're typically defending groups or people or scientific movements that maybe need to be defended. But to take away free speech as a form of defending those groups or people or ideas is not a good way to, I guess, find justice. Anyway, it was a really good book. I listened to it on Audible. I like to listen to nonfiction on Audible. This one, I think I missed out a little bit because there were quite a bit of charts, and I just didn't look at the charts. Didn't really want to. Just there were kind of some brain teasers, where there'd be questions like, well, whatever. I won't go into it. But yeah. Oh, and he also he kind of belabored a couple commonly known ideas or principles in academia, I thought, which might be helpful, but if you've taken an intro to psych class or something, you'd already know them. But he spends a while talking about the prisoner's dilemma. He talks about Jean-Jacques Rousseau's buck hunting dilemma. And he also talks about, that question where the difference between the train coming and the train's naturally going to hit someone, if someone's willingness to pull the lever, whether or not their willingness to pull the lever is arbitrary. Anyway, I love the book. I recommend it. Check it out. By Steven Pinker. I forget even what it's called. What happens when we know that everyone already knows? Thanks. Bye.